Hello and good morning, or whatever time it actually is when you watch this video. I wanted to take a couple of weeks of testing before I did any sort of what my deck looks like now chat. And here we are. So the big changes I've made since Hunted came out, some of them are pretty obvious, I think. Shelter from the Storm has made it into the deck. I don't think they should shock anybody. It's a very solid D-React. I don't think it belongs in every deck. I think people are overhyping it in its entirety, but it is very strong. It's a D-React that can be used to prevent a little bit of arcane damage, so it has merit into, non-physical attack decks, which makes it very, very strong in itself. It's got flexibility. There's no reason you can't run it in every deck. I just think, Ninja is a good example. Don't really need it over Sync, in my opinion. Maybe they would like it, but Sync below is very, very strong in a lot of decks. Interestingly, Sync is something I have cut from this, which is what the Shelter's replaced. So the logic I've got here is Sync fixes bad hands. That can be incredible, obviously. The thing is that most decks that get their hands fixed by Sync are probably only blocking with the Sync. It might be an Arsenal waiting, it might be in their hand, but it will leave 3 to 4 cards for them to play with, and it's that case of I'm going to get rid of a blue, or I'm going to throw a red and try and look for a blue. What I find with Verdance, particularly in the way I play her, I can't speak for other people's builds as much, but this build certainly, is the way you evaluate your hand doesn't really lead itself to using Sync below to Sync. Because you end your turn, your opponent starts, and you are looking at the 4 cards you've just grabbed. My evaluation is always, what have I got offensively? Do I have a yellow and a Command and Conquer? Do I have a blue and an arcane spell to do a Surgeon into damage thing? And if the answer is yes, you are basically splitting your hand in half, right? This is my offense, this is my denial. And that evaluation's got to be made quite quickly, in that it's got to be made by the first block you make. So you have that problem of Sync often can't be used quick enough to fix your hand. If they swing for, 2 damage and you're thinking, well, I'm going to probably block that, you're not going to use Sync below up on that 2 damage card. Aggro decks are full of 0 for 4s. You want that Sync, you want any D-React on the 0 for 4, ideally. So, pick Assassin or something, right? That Sync below is going to sit and it's going to wait and see if they're going to hit you with, a Hand or Arsenal banish effect that it can hard block. You're not going to go, right, well, I'm going to stop the daggers with it. So you are using cards up before the Sync. And I think that's a big reason why I don't like Sync in this deck, that I've normally already committed to, well, I'm getting rid of this from my hand, or I'm using this for this. And to me, that really pushed it from the deck, and Shelter, very smoothly takes its place because it does everything we want. It, as weird as it sounds, it pretends to do some of what Crown of Seeds used to do, which is breaking a card up into ones. That is its strongest thing to me. Not only does it, block the Kodachi and threaten to prevent any throwing of the Kodachi to stop people getting chains going of damage. It's also the fact that it's got one floating around. You can pair it with a card from your hand and it blocks 4, and obviously block 4 is that beautiful break point where, you know, where Snatch doesn't hit, where other things don't trigger. And I think that's quite important. So that's really why, you know, it's explaining the obvious, right? But that's why Shelter has absolutely hard made it in. It's why Sink Below left. Ring of Roses obviously made it into the deck because it's Ring of Roses. It's Earth, it blocks 3, it's got a good ability if you do actually get it played early. It's a good solid card. And the final card that's gone into the main deck is Scour. So previously I was running Etherak in the main. It's a good blue, it makes the pond a token, it's not bad at all, but it's not really been getting me the mileage I want. I've tried a few things in this sort of last blue slot. I've tried the Emeritus Scalding. It's not bad as a late game concept because obviously it does the 4 arcane, but I've just really not been liking it that much. I know some people are really hot on it, so I'm not gonna, you know, dismiss their experiences with it. People have done very well with it in their deck. It's always a blue 3 block, so it's, you know, it's not a bad card by any means, but it's not what I personally wanted in there. I gave a little bit of thought to like blue Snapback to join my red Snapbacks, just so that the Ether Flare combo maybe has more legs, but I don't actually want to commit to this combo. It's something I wanted to discuss and I'll get back into in a second, but yeah, the Scours, basically, these used to just be in the inventory. I'd bring them in for this and for Vincent. Primarily, they are very, very strong into both of those. I would run them a little bit into Prism because it's a good way of clearing out the blue auras, because they all cost 0. You can just sort of sweep them out at some point because we really cannot get rid of them with attacking because we do not have the attacks and the, you know, we don't have daggers basically to break them all. They've moved to the main because why not? I suppose would be the simple description. So things that came out of this deck when I was rejigging it, trying to work out where to go. My beloved trash blue slot, which had been Tomes at one point and had turned into Earth's Embrace for a while. I've finally trimmed it. The deck is a little less blue than I like. I really would love to cram another blue in there, but as it stands, the way I've been going around that is from the sideboard editions. So I'm still on 3 energy pots. You could probably go down to 2, honestly, but I just really like being able to reliably draw them. Having 3 makes Kano matches much, much smoother, and, you know, I play into a good amount of Kano. I see one every probably 2 events easily, if not every event. They are great into Jarl, who again is somewhat popular and has potential to be a bad matchup if you are relying on certain things. Like if you don't have an energy pot into him, you are a lot more disruptible. It can be a problem. I like being able to get them early. I don't mind the fact of having some redundant potion in the deck because you can pitch them. We often want blues, and like I quite like not having my hand bound by the fact that this is my one copy of something. So, you know, drawing an energy pot and going, oh, I now have to play around getting this in or I lose later, is kind of a big deal to me. I would rather go, well, I've got 2 more in the deck and I'll just use this for an optimum turn and later I will find another energy potion and it's fine. You know, that to me is you know, a much nicer state for me to play under. again, you know, some people's mileage may vary. I know people have done very well running 1 or 2. Mental Block is my other new blue card. I tested for a while with some options. I really settled on this because of the Ponder token. Calming Breeze is a good alternative, and I did flit between 2 Calming Breezes and 2 Mental Blocks for a while before finally settling on a full 3 Mental Blocks. Really was it being blue that I think finished off my decision making. Calming Breeze, just to sort of sing its praises, it can go in your arsenal. That's a big thing for me, that you can find one on a turn where you don't need it and lock it in for later for the anti-dagger game. You know, Mental Block and Shelter both suffer from the thing of you've got to use them on the turn you get them. You don't. Well, I say Mental Block, definitely a case, you know, you are just using it up straight away and cycling it if you're not going to save it to pitch. Shelter, you know, you can arsenal it and block 4 with it. That's a perfectly good use for it. It's not the end of the world, but it is that thing of you don't get to, you know, you don't get your flexibility if you save it, or if it's in your starting hand and you put it in your arsenal. It's you know, it's going to get used as a block, not as a you know, not for its Calming Breeze half. So yeah, that's kind of part of the decision making of why the set of blues left the main, which is in pretty much every matchup I bring in 3 blues from the inventory, and they make up the balance that I want in my deck. So it ends up being like 27, 14, 22, I guess it'd be, which is about right, I find. There's very few matchups where I don't bring something in. There's a couple. There's a few aggro decks where they've not got knives, basically, so that's a point where I'd do it, but there's very, very few. Even Aurora, I don't find the Mental Blocks particularly bad because she has a few annoying I'm going to try and hit you turns, and Mental Block can do a lot into those, especially with I cannot remember what her grenade card's called, but you know, when she hits you with an attack, you take 5 arcane spell. You know, they drop that into you. A Mental Block can absolutely boss you in terms of preventing their turn. You often end up like blocking with your entire hand, but you've got a Ponder token, so you take no damage. You get a card into your arsenal. It's quite a good recovery. So I like it for that. And the last change I made was there's a Seeds of Tomorrow. I'm still not 100% sold. It's relatively good tech. I don't hate it. It only comes in occasionally, and I'm still really not particularly wedded to it. I'm looking to see what else could go into the inventory, but short of just putting another random 6 or 7 damage card in for the Prism matchups, I'm very torn on what would even go in there in the current environment. It's a decent card. Prevent 5 is a strong effect and very good at shutting down certain decks like high caliber turns, but comes with the eternal caveat of you've got to put something in your arsenal, and you've either got you kind of almost always lose a decent card to it because you don't want to arsenal bad cards hoping you eventually see a Seeds. That's inherently its problem, in my opinion. It's solid enough. It's not something I love, and not necessarily something that meshes with the play style of what I'm doing. So, at some point maybe I'll work out something better. There's a whole heap of potential cards, but I really don't know what would go in. Maybe one more Root Bound. I keep being tempted, but I'm unsure. I'll go through some more testing with that at some point and we can have yet another video. But those are the bulk changes. The equipment didn't really change. There is the nice, I forget its name unfortunately, but there's the equipment that blocks one and then blocks one from a weapon attack, which is quite a nice alternative. Very good if you don't own a stone one as well. Like it's a good choice in terms of that. It's a better iron rod. But I find that the problem is that people always start their attack with a dagger, and that's the one you kind of want to put that one block into. So I'm not the biggest fan. I would rather have something that blocks two into more matchups, so I'm still on Stonewall. What else did we do? Oh, sorry, I did do another change. It was Command and Conquer. So Command and Conquer should always have been in the deck. I just didn't own any. So I finally bit the bullet on purchasing my playset. So Command and Conquer is now firmly in the deck where it always should have been. There's nothing else I think particularly groundbreaking in here. Everyone's now on yellow fruits because they've seen I forget your surname, sorry, but Jonathan, who did really, really well at one of the events running them. I've always liked them. They give you a break point into Illusionist, which I think is really good. They give you the ability to throw more cards into the graveyard for your decompose, which I really value. I do play them at people a worrying amount. Like, sometimes you just get a bad hand and you've got a yellow fruit. So I'm going to swing for 6. It's not the worst. It's on rate for us. Bear that in mind. Like, our standard is using 1 card for 3 damage. So a 3 cost that does 6 is actually pretty much exactly on point for us. So it's, doesn't have an effect. But, in a pinch, getting aggressive with your Fruits of the Forest is not at all a bad play. And what else is not standard? Will of Arcana. You could take it or leave it. I really like it. I own one, which is, part of my factor in playing it. Some people really like running Heart of Fiendel now, I think, because it obviously can do some quite big bomb turns. Again, I don't own one. I used to. I sold it. I've not regretted that sale, to be honest. It gave me a lot of money towards other stuff for decks. I like this. It possibly makes you a little bit more vulnerable to people throwing weakest links, but they're not all that common anymore. They've died out of the meta a lot. You see them in Ira, and I really don't have them played against me apart from that. It amps 1. It produces like 2 damage for free for being used for a pitch. What people also forget is it's just a blue. The resources aren't locked to like doing the amp or anything. The amount of times I draw it and I just felling off it or something and go, well, it was a blue. There's not many times I find that I'm caught with it and go, oh, it's dead. Very occasionally, very, very occasionally where I'm going, I wish I could block with this, but it's not a frequent occurrence, and I like it. So this brings us round to the Flare Snapback combo. So you need some amount of arcane damage in the deck. I'm finding this is about right. I would not mind a little bit more. Like, I kind of miss my Eternal Infernos. They got cut to make space for the Command and Conquers because there's not enough room in the deck. But I do miss them, and just that little bit of extra arcane is often nice, but it's not too bad overall. But at the moment I'm on Ether Flare Snapback, so it's very simple logic. Compared to running something like the Eternal Infernos, they do 1 less damage. That's a shame. What they give in exchange is the ability to do some very big damage. So 2 scenarios they play into. One is when you just rip them on like the first turn of the game, and I have won a lot of aggro matches that I probably had no right winning by like having turn 1 Ether Flare Snapback as part of my damage, or even better, like turn 2. I've played quite a few games where I've gone turn 1, channel the Millennium Tree, and thrown, I don't know, Pulsing Ether or something at people, right? And done some damage. And then on turn 2, I've naturally drawn Ether Flare Snapback, and I've gone, right, well, I just leak a load of damage from them, and I hit them for 4, then 7, then 10. 21 damage retaliation is a lot of damage. Like, that's the point where you ask if aggro decks are broken, right? When they start throwing 21. And, we can potentially rip that sometimes. It's sort of playing the RNG game, but it's still good. And there is that thing of like, you can Arsenal one of the two and just sit on it for a while and look for the other half. Sometimes, I don't hold them to the detriment of plays. I don't sit there going, I'm going to keep this snapback forever for when I see the combo. But I will happily go, I've got a Command and Conquer, a snapback and a blue, and I will hold the snapback, get it into Arsenal, and wait until I need an arcane damage source to play it. And if I don't need the arcane damage source for the next couple of turns, I will just wait and see if I'm getting, the Ether Snap combo in on somebody. It's good free damage. Even without Tree, Ether Flare's going to do 4 if they're not arcane barriering, which means Snapback does 7 for 1, which is, pretty good rate. The only caveat of that is obviously it tends to push your resources a little further because you acquire 4, so can be a problem there. But the final reason I like them, and probably the more obvious reason, sometimes you need a bigger combo turn. So again, Jarl being a really good example, he's probably going to get at least one piece of equipment off you. They've all learnt to take the hat now. It's quite likely in a lot of games you're going to lose the hat and the boots, which means you are going to have to manually do a big combo. When you're doing that, I've got energy potions to help me out with the resource costs, and 2 energy pots, assuming no disruption from them, allows you to do Surgent Ether Tide, Ether Flare, Ether Snap, and you have 3 cards left, and it can be like, double Rampant and a life gain card, right? Like, that is huge, basically. Crack 2 to 3 healing pots and into that, and you will absolutely light up a lot of the Ultim decks, especially because a lot of them are only on like AP1, which is, again, a very, very big deal. 2 healing pots, 2 rampants is an amp for 12. So you're doing 13 off the Surgeon on, you've got a life gain card in there. So it'd be 18. So that 18 becomes, what are we on, 36? 50, maths off my head, 54, I want to say. All right, whatever. It's more than someone's entire life total if they aren't preventing big chunks of it. By virtue of the fact that you're doing Ether Tide, Ether Flare, Snapback, and obviously there's some bonus damage from the Flare and the Snap themselves. I like it for that reason. It gives you... It's more lines. That's the thing that, to me, speaks to me about that combo. I will do some testing without it soon and see if I reevaluate, because a few people have told me they're very cold on running the combo and they'd rather have other stuff, which is completely valid. There's a lot of ways to play Verdance decks. If you don't like the look of this one, go find Jonathan's deck. Like, that's super solid. It's got a lot of overlap with what I'm playing, but actually takes some very different routes to get there. and he's got a whole slew of wins at competitive play to sort of back up that deck. Really good deck that you should look at. But if you fancy something a bit different to him, if you more like the idea of really investing in mid-range and looking for lines in your hand, which that's what draws me to playing Verdance, right? Like that's really my big thing here. I love being able to go, I've drawn a hand, what can I do with it? I've drawn pieces of my toolbox, what gets blocked out, what goes in Arsenal to see if I can sell later. Do I keep a tree? Do I Arsenal a tree? Do I keep a flare? Do I play a flare? I love having decision making and having to make those decisions to try and chip out matches. To me, that's why I play the game. I am not a hand goes burr player because it doesn't interest me because there's not that much thought process on attacking. At least in my mind. Selecting the biggest numbers and playing them all is not as rewarding to me as, working out how to get a combo out of nowhere or, how to steal a win on the last turn with Storm Striders as they come in for lethal. That kind of thing. That's really the satisfaction of playing a wizard, in my opinion. And especially Verdance, who is, she's half Guardian, half wizard, right? Like, she isn't Kano. Not a true wizard, as some people would put it. And she's got some very Guardian tendencies with the desire to block and mid-range. But I think the last thing I have to cover is just, again, in the inventory. We've still got the Red Summer's Falls. They're still decent. They're good prism stuff. They have a little bit of game into Enigma, although Enigma has fallen off the face of the earth, which, frankly, I'm loving at the moment. Scar for Scar is also just prism card. This still needs a little bit more testing. I've got 6 slots tied up in the prism match. The prism match still feels dreadful. I've got 9 ways of cracking her attacks. They're all 6s, which means she can give it -1 and you can't, which is a problem. Prism's a nightmare. Prism is kind of like taking a loss to a degree. Like Majin Bay made a comment that really stuck with me in his last video he did talking about Verdance, and he said prism matches are going well until they're not. That to me feels like exactly it. Like, sometimes you start off terribly and just lose outright to prism in the first seconds. Sometimes you claw out 5 or 6 turns of you're shattering all the illusions with 6s, you're coming in with damage, you're chipping away, you're grinding through her resources. If she is getting angels, you're killing them, you're going, yeah, this is great. And then one turn you don't do that. And then she just goes, great, and now I'd run away with the game, I've just put 2 cards in soul, I'm now going to draw like 5 cards a turn because you can't stop me at instant speed, and you really struggle to kill those angels. If you don't have a Scar for Scar in hand, you are using your whole turn to remove problem cards. We are really, really not geared up for her as a deck. I think as a class, we're okay because, Wizard is one of the most split up classes imaginable now. Verdant, Cecilio, and Kano are 3 completely different classes, if we're being honest. They are a Guardian, a Ninja, and a Wizard, pretending to be other things. We are the one that does not like Illusionist. But, this is at the moment my best bet. Like, Scar for Scar, Summer's Fall going against Illusionist, and you get somewhere. you know, if you feel like it, and you know, I often feel like it, just take them out, put in more cards to help you with other matchups, and call Prism a loss. Because I do kind of feel like a lot of the time she is just a loss. You know, your number one maneuver to beating Prism in a tournament is let someone else beat her and then never play her. Which is, you know, entirely random. But you can just dodge her. That is honestly my favourite plan for her, because she's such a rough matchup. But I think that covers everything I was going to sort of cover with the deck list. You know, there's no real surprises in it, I think, apart from, you know, a few of my slightly more niche card choices, like the flare combos. Yeah, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I think that's really it. The deck list will go into I'll put it in the comments, I'll put it in the description, so you can just steal it if you fancy giving it a go. I do recommend it. It's an interesting way to play. You know, if you're here watching this, I'm going to assume you've watched a lot of my gameplay videos. If you haven't, check them out. Anything in the last couple of weeks since I put this up. So anything in February 2025 is pretty much playing on this, I think. So, you know, take your pick. Find a matchup you don't like, have a look, see if I got trashed or not. I don't cherry pick the matches particularly. I probably don't upload half the new ones. All I do on Talishot is play new. I don't know why there's so many new players there, but I think that's the only thing I ever trim out. There's just a lot of losing to new and going meh. Yeah. I'll throw that in, I guess, as a last comment. You know, along with Prism new is just a loss. I don't really devote much to playing her. You know, she's often playing Arcane Barrier 3 with CYB in deck, and you don't win most of the time. You could try cramming in Poison the Wells, see if that helps, but you know, if you do that, you're cutting your Prism attack out as well for that. So, you know, that's your decision making, I would say. If you did drop Prism, I would be very tempted with very, very bad at card names, you haven't guessed. The blue prevent cards gaining damage card is a pretty good sideboard card. A couple of those wouldn't go amiss. I've got Scour stuck in my head, so I cannot remember any of the card names now. I think it might begin with an S. That's why I'm stuck on Scour, but that's all I can remember. I'll add it to my maybe pile because it's not in there, I noticed, because I was looking for the name. That'll remind me next time I do one of these. But hopefully everyone knows what the hell I'm on about. Again, if someone wants to put it in the comment and help everyone out, that'd be great. So yeah, that's my current deck list rundown. Hope it's helpful to someone. We'll see you in the next video.